Let's talk about fine art competition in our Christian schools.
This episode of the Christian Principles Podcast is brought to you by the Herzog Foundation. And as always, the thoughts and opinions expressed within this episode are those of your hosts and not necessarily of the Herzog Foundation. Welcome to the Christian Principles Podcast. I'm Matt George.
I'm Mark Zockoll. Excited to join you coming back from the judging of an elementary, what we call as a fine arts competition. But of course, there's more to the fine arts competition traditionally than just the fine arts of, be it speech and music and the arts. We also see in the competitions that have been around for a while that there's an academic part of those as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we say fine arts, we're really trying to tie all that stuff in together.
Yeah, the competition that does not involve athleticism.
Yeah, everything, but almost everything. But I mean, even debate would be included in this, and I
Right.
imagine a mock trial and whatnot. A speech competition, it would be great to have. Obviously there are many different types of competition, be it the academic competition and the speech, but generally speaking, for many of our schools, when we refer to a fine arts competition, we are using that more generally. But tonight we're going to talk about the value of the competition itself, because maybe you need to be convinced of that. Maybe you were not one who thrived on competition. And in fact, perhaps you were put off by competition in your past. Matt, tell me about yourself. I mean, when it came to your participation in fine arts or the academic side or the speech side, was competition something you thrived on? Was it something you expected? Was it not something you expected? Something you came to love? Tell me about that.
All of it. Fine arts was definitely a center point for our school, for our state association, which I grew up in the Keystone Christian Education Association there in the great Keystone State of Pennsylvania. And we did not have an elementary competition, so our competitions began in the 7th grade, moving on up. So junior high and senior high competition. And I remember well gearing up for that first competition, not really knowing what to expect. Most of the kids in my school were going to be a part of the choir, so we were going to be competing with that. We might be in smaller groups. There were certainly several kids that played instruments to the level of being able to compete in them. I unfortunately was never really at that level. I say unfortunately, although I'm very thankful that I never had to really compete in the instrumental side of things. But my parents, my mother in particular, was very determined that I would be involved in at least a solo singing solo and doing some kind of a dramatic speech, whether it be dramatic religious reading. She wasn't too prone to me doing like a humorous, although I always wanted to do humorous and I just never pulled that trigger. I ended up being more so dramatic, and I was scared to death, did not want to do it, fought it tooth and nail. But then I got bit by the bug the first time round, and there wasn't a competition that went by that I wasn't involved. And that really did become one of the highlights of my year. And I do believe kind of set the stage for what I would do in college and then even on into my career. So I think it was a massively important aspect of my schooling experience.
That is exciting. I mean, what else would this, what else would be the value of this if not to what could we point to as being a greater value than to set up someone for not only what they have come to enjoy, but then what they can turn into a part of their, maybe not even their life's work, but their life's, if it be in the church, life's giving back, their life's ministry, but maybe even, yeah, their life's work to some extent. My time in the fine arts competition was, and the musical side, I don't want to say demanded, but I was going to participate because I enjoyed competition. I was going to participate I participated at bells in a handbell choir that went pretty far,
Hmm.
but more so in our vocal performances, our chorals. I did a small and larger ensembles and things like that. Never a solo. Do not have that. Do not have that voice. Do not have that desire, as you so aptly do, and
Well,
as others do, of course. But that was not me. That was not I," said the cat.
mm,
So in those times, I enjoyed being away from school. I enjoyed winning. I didn't really care if we lost. It wasn't, it wasn't something that drove me one way or the other, but I did enjoy it. I all the extracurriculars, throw them at me and let me have fun with all of them because that's definitely who I was. So I also would remember this it seemed to me right now, thinking back, that every one of my school years was a demanded fine arts. It was demanded of us that we participate in some
participate.
way in fine arts. And of course, as you noted, the choir gave us an opportunity to do that. Academic testing gave us an opportunity to do that. But when I was younger, and we did have elementary fine arts early on, and we did participate in the state association competitions even early on in our speeches. I did declamations and I don't think I never did a comedic reading or a
Hmm.
humorous interpretation, but I definitely did declamations. And looking back on it now, if I was going to coach one thing, I would love to coach humorous interpretations. Because when I
Yeah.
read my kids their bedtime stories, those were absolutely some of the greatest pieces of a humorous interpretation to offer. In fact, my wife did a rendition of the one fish, two fish, excuse me, a rendition of the One Fish, Two Fish with her friends, and they could still do it right now, I'm sure. And they did a smashing job with that with that interpretation. And I will always go back to it and say, look at how much fun they had with this.
Hmm.
They did it themselves. They really didn't have a lot of coaching in it. They were just those sort of, we're going to go and do this because we enjoy one another and we enjoy winning and we were smart enough to do this. And again, those students were all athletes and those students were all strong academics, and here they are throwing this on top too.
Right.
And the two of them were also involved in what we the instrumental parts of the fine arts. So it really, again, I can evidence for them it just further rounded out that person. Maybe that's a good place to jump off away from our stories and into the
Sure.
discussion of this itself. Is here you have an opportunity not only to have students who otherwise have developed a skill outside of school or perhaps in school to go and to see others, which that's always valuable. We
Hmm.
cannot overlook the value of putting someone's relative skill in context. And for some people, that is a necessary, not a slap down, but a necessary, like, oh, look, you're not the biggest, baddest dude on the block. You have several around you that actually do this a little bit better than you do,
Right.
and you have some places to grow. And not only is there, the judging that comes with that, but also seeing the peers. Well, that's highly valuable as well. It's not just the faculty and staff at the school that the person attends, but now it's outside of them. So we can poo-poo the competition. We can say it, maybe it's actually, someone could argue, of course, you can argue anything, but we can argue that it's harmful to someone. But there's a lot of good in students getting that fully rounding experience, having somebody else offer them insight on what it is that they think they do well, or they are open to criticism somehow, in a way that
Hmm.
perhaps I wasn't at that age. What do you think?
Yeah. I was going to say, you remember back when we had the podcast where we talked about athletic competition and we really kind of zeroed in with our guest that competition was less about me just destroying the opponent, and it's more of me striving with, and in a way trying to make them better and them trying to make me better. That is definitely what my idea of competition was when it came to fine arts. I was never really there to do better than other people, but I knew the talent that I was going to be up against,
Yeah.
by going and viewing. And I actually had really good relationships with others in other schools, and people that would be competing in my category. And I knew, like, they're going to come with their A game, and I got to come with my A game. And
Yeah, yeah.
And that is definitely more the spirit that I got. Now our competition did things a little bit differently than maybe most competitions do. I know I've had the opportunity to be a part of other state competitions, and many of them, and you could tell me if I'm pretty sure Max did it this way back in when you were in school,
Uh-huh.
where there was definitely like a first place, second place, third place. Yeah, that's I feel like that's the typical approach. But KCEA, for whatever reason, I'm not really sure of their history. It would be interesting to look back at it. But you were not trying to win first place. You were just trying to get a quality standing. Like your highest rating would be a superior rating, and anybody who got a superior rating got like the first place trophy. And so you were truly there to just get the highest score that you could possibly get.
Yeah, do your best.
Yeah, so you weren't there. You really weren't there to beat somebody else. Now they still picked like best in show, and they would do that kind of stuff too. And I, it
Like
was
you
kind
were
of
so
funny
much
where,
chattel.
yeah, yeah. But I didn't. It was interesting where I was always kind of scared of being asked to do best in show, and I think that influenced the things that I would pick to do. I'm like, they'll never want somebody to get up there and do this. Like I just wasn't really interested in that, and I felt like they did always pick like the funny stuff, and I never really did end up doing the funny stuff. But yeah, that was kind of the when I look back on it, that idea of we don't have to come with the idea of like in a basketball game, like you get into this headspace of we're just gonna beat them, or even you're just there's no way we're gonna win. Like this is gonna be awful. There was no unless you were not prepared, there was no reason to have any kind of thoughts like that. You were just truly there to do your best.
This episode of the Christian Principles Podcast is brought to you by the Herzog Foundation. As Christian educators, we know that liberty without truth is fragile, and truth starts with God. That's why the Herzog Foundation has launched the Faith and Freedom 250 campaign, an initiative that equips schools and families to connect the biblical roots of American freedom to the next generation. Having started on July 4th, 2025, and following through until July 3rd, 2026, Herzog is releasing short videos each Friday, highlighting voices from across the country, educators, leaders, parents, and everyday Americans, reflecting on key moments in our nation's history and the importance of commemorating 250 years of liberty. We all understand how faith has always been central to our country's founding and why it still matters today. It's an incredible way to integrate history, civics, and biblical worldview into your school's curriculum, especially as we approach America's 250th birthday in 2026. Visit herzogfoundation.com to view their free resources and get started today. And make sure to tell them that the fellas here at the Christian Principles Podcast sent you.
GradeLink has a smart feature for athletic directors and coaches: automatic eligibility alerts. If a student athlete drops below academic requirements, coaches get notified right away. No need to chase down grades. Head to cpp.gradelink.com to see it in action.
I find it to be also extremely encouraging that we're part of the Maryland Association of Christian Schools, but we could float around to others closer to us or further away from us and note their competitions as well. I know actually this week, actually tonight was as far as the American Association of Christian Schools, tonight was their national competition awards evening. So as I was judging, our fine arts director for our state was listening to the national. I think it was actually Jameson Coppola. I'm pretty sure it was Jameson who was reading off
Reading all the names.
the awards. I know that voice. So he hasn't come on the pod yet. We got to get him here on the pod. He owes us one for sure. We bring him out to enough stuff. He needs to come on. But in any case, she was listening to it, and I thought, even as I was judging these elementary history projects and science projects, I was thinking to myself, wow, there are so many schools represented here. And we are feeding into a larger national competition. Of course, it doesn't have to be done through a national Christian association. There's many associations that our Christian schools could be involved with, but of course, the ones that we have available to us, why not utilize those as well? But for Max, one of the jewels on the crown, which is since 1971, what Max has offered, or at least, soon thereafter, its opening started to offer, was this fine arts and academic and speech competition to students. Um, it still has a lot of value just in bringing people together. It has a lot of value in, we already mentioned, evidencing them versus someone else, or seeing if they can achieve a quality or superior rating based on the rubric that somebody else grades besides those that they know the best. But the camaraderie that's available. This evening, I was speaking to Johnny Rebert from Frederick Christian Academy, and Lynn Poor from Chestertown was there, and of course Ruth and her husband were there, and Leanne from Carroll, and just again, a wonderful way to continue to meet and to see people and to build those relationships. And that, I often think of this, and I've heard it said about Christian colleges and universities: we're going to miss them when they're gone. And I know some schools and some associations have ebbed and flowed on the value they place on the fine arts competitions. And again, we are saying that generally, but the value they place on them, because it perhaps was larger in the past or whatnot. But it is a blessing to see as many involved with them still. And for this very reason, on Wednesday, I was able to take a trip with our executive director of the Maryland Association of Christian Schools, B-Dub. I was over there with B-Dubs. And when we sat down and spoke with the head of school that we were visiting, one of the most attractive things to this head of school was what Max had begun and had for a long time offered, and that was simply the student activity opportunities, of which, again, as noted, the fine arts competition, the speech, the academic, that for the elementary and secondary is considered a jewel of the crown. And it is not something that's easily set up. It is not something that's easily judged. It's not something it takes a lot of work for the coordinators to get together and to make that happen. But that work evidences such an opportunity for schools to prepare and to present and to have students do the same and to grow in those ways. It's wonderful to still have that opportunity through associations. There are schools that don't have it, that want it and that see the value in it and look to, and would probably make a move to get to an association that had it once they realized one was available. And I'll say it again, it would be a very sad thing to lose them and to wish that we had them back. So if you're not part of a state association, I would very much encourage you to go look up your state association, or go look up an association that would offer these things, and avail yourself of them, avail your students of them, because even if you're so small you can't put out a basketball team, you probably have a student in your school, and that student could very well be interested in seeing their drawing go out and be recognized, or taking a piece of music which they have been working on with their piano teacher or whatever happens to be, and pushing it out there for competition, or at least to be seen and heard by others. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is what I was going to say about fine arts competition that kind of stands out from other extracurriculars. If a school's rationale for not participating in a fine arts competition is we don't have experts on hand that can train, that can coach, that can do all these things, that's fine. Like maybe we don't have enough kids to put a choir together, or whatever the excuse may be. The beautiful thing about individualized competition is you can take the rules, you can take the judging sheets, whatever competition you're going to be involved in gives out, you can put those out to your parents and to your students and say, if you are interested, if you're skilled in any of these things, which we know what our kids are skilled in, when we see them doodling on their notebooks, we know they're wonderful artists. We can say, hey, there's a monochromatic art competition.
Exactly.
Just take one of your sketches and enter it, or just make sure you're following the rules. That it could be the one moment where that
Yes.
kid who doesn't try out for basketball, that doesn't, you know, isn't maybe the best academically, can be the shining star, and they can develop that skill. I'll even say for myself, when it came to speech, my English teacher was definitely, I mean, she coached speech for years and years and years. Um, but it it definitely became something that I wanted to try myself, and I wasn't really all that interested in getting coached. Now that kind of sounds arrogant now that I'm saying it, but that's not that's not what I was trying to do. Just I wanted to try things that were just different, and ended up just between myself, my mom, you know, we would record myself, I'd watch myself doing it and try different things. But it was just exploring. It was an exploration project for me. Even one of the speeches, I got an opportunity to kind of write. That was actually, we did that. My mom and I just created our own scripts. Now, granted, usually you can't compete in like a completely new, you created everything, but we would take cuttings from literature and I would do that as opposed to what everybody did. You know, here's the script. This guy's doing the same speech that the guy did right before us. And I just tried to do unique things that were also familiar, but I even had an opportunity. There wasn't a script for something. And I asked my mom one year, I think it was my junior year, hey, if I get permission from the author, can I try to write this myself? So you know, you get the opportunities. You're giving your students those opportunities, and it's not something where the school has to do all the coaching and do all the training and put all that time and effort in. You're just giving them the opportunity. You're giving your students the platform to be able to do with it what they will. Now, granted, some might come for coaching. Some might say, I really want to do it, but I don't know how. And so, yeah, it's not super hard to just say, hey, I'll look at the rules. I'll listen to you as you practice it. I'll give you a little bit of tips and we'll go and we'll learn from the judging and see what we can do the year after that. So, yeah, I don't, I it's definitely not a program where you have to invest so much money and time and resources. That is something you can easily just hand over to the students and say, we want you to shine, so here's the opportunity, just take it.
Another one of those, if we were back when we first started this podcast and we were following the script skeleton that we had, and we weren't just so darn good on our feet like we are now, but if we were back then, we would have been walking through, okay, what is the spiritual impact of this practice or policy or this item on our school? And I would love to, I mean, hearkening back there makes a lot of sense. Why is it that Christian schools are interested, and, you know, going back to the 70s and 80s, why were they interested in these competitions for their schools? Well, in a large part, it was because so many of these skills were skills to develop to further the ministry that they believe and we believe that our students are called to. Our youth pastor often said, and I heard Pastor Billy say this, and moving forward, you know, his youth ministry is a ministering youth, not a youth ministry, or is as much a ministering youth as it is a youth ministry. He wants to see them serving. And he evidenced not only with his greasy hands, helping people in their vehicles, and never being above a repair, and also going out and finding a million different things for the teens to do and the youth group to do and to be a part of. But also, he was one who wanted people to be introduced to either instruments, or if they weren't musical, and he does this now, he wants them to be introduced to the back end electrical. What am I trying to say? The sound system. Thank you.
Mhm.
I can do this. I could talk. Yeah, he wants them to be introduced to the sound system. And so he finds a way to get them involved somehow in the ministry of the church and working actively in the church. And there's a balance there. You want the youth to be sitting and to be listening. You want them to be developing those skills as well. But if they walked out of the youth group and they had never learned to serve in some way, if they had not developed themselves musically, if they hadn't been challenged to sing more, hadn't been challenged to develop an instrument or their fingers on the switchboard, like if they hadn't been challenged to do that, he would find it somewhat, I don't want to say failure, but he would find that to be they had not done all they could have done in youth group. And that means a lot. And how much more should it mean in a school where we are attempting to promote to the students the excellence that Christ offered them on the cross? And so again, we're talking about the rounding out of the person, but giving them an opportunity to go into practice. And even if they're not the singer,
Yeah.
go and do the public speaking, because maybe they're going to be reading. And again, this only goes so far, and it's very niche, it's very minute, but maybe that public speaking is how they remember, like, I can read the Bible in front of the church. I was just speaking to I have other friends that I do talk to sometimes.
No,
I
don't
really
believe it.
do. And my good friend made a statement concerning the relative value of public speaking and public reading specifically, not even just like memorize something, but just reading in public, reading aloud. To be the angel's advocate, but also just to further the conversation, took a hard stance on the opposite and really said, no, there is a value to public reading. There is a value to making yourself read out loud to people or speak out loud to people. And there's a skill. And in many ways, I would agree with our Pastor Binkley and those who would say there's a value in this, in asking all the students to be involved in the choir, demanding that at one point in their high school career, they're involved in a choir. Actually, that same conversation I was having just a day ago, the head of school was making a wonderful critical insight on are our parents so interested today in moving their students to a place that they consider to be more technically preparing. So their student walks away as they have their it wouldn't be their RN, but they're a CNA. They're a CNA when they're done with high school. Or they have a welding certification, or they have this, they have that. She wanted to make the point that she is considering seriously an anti-specialization campaign. It's not a small school at all, but an anti-specialization campaign where she goes out and tells her community, come here, because we're not going to pinhole your students into having to consider themselves knowing exactly what they want to do by the time they're done with ninth grade. They're going to have the opportunity to develop rather holistically. And we're going to ask them to do things that they might be uncomfortable doing. And we're going to actually probably require of them to do something they're uncomfortable doing, which goes back to the conversation we had a while back about long form reading and making sure that it's not all just simple for them to attain.
Yeah.
So several thoughts there, but just in general, the spiritual growth, strengthening abilities, which would come with this opportunity. Yes, competition, but opportunity.
Yeah, it just goes back to, we need to make a bigger deal about these, what we might deem simple, traditional things. It's no small matter. I don't think fine arts competition is just it. This is just the event again. We're just back to this point. This could be the competition that opens up somebody's opportunity to follow the Lord into pastoral ministry. I will say one of my greatest regrets when it comes to high school even does come back to fine arts competition, because my pastor every single year, and I just knew it was going to come, was like, hey, Matt, I think you should enter in the preaching competition. I was like, I'm doing all these other things. Like, I don't know. And I never did it. And I kind of wish I had, because there were other guys in my school that did. And I don't know, maybe there was something in my mind that I thought was just weird to be competing with preaching. But they're all pastors now. Those guys that did compete in preaching, they're all pastors.
Wow.
And I believe they got their start because when they went to those competitions, they were getting wonderful feedback about how to present the gospel. Like you were saying, like even just the ability to stand in front of a group of people and do something that maybe at the time they were uncomfortable with. gave them that boost of encouragement of, no, this is definitely something that I could do. For me, it was definitely more on the just public presentation. Like, I just really did love becoming a character, and
Yeah.
that encouraged me to do a lot of plays in college. But, public speaking is not something I am afraid of doing. And a lot of that is in part to the fine arts competitions. So, yeah, it's definitely no small thing.
You mentioned perhaps you found it, you know, interesting or funny to consider preaching a competition. And that's exactly where I was and am. I really don't like the thought of there being a first, second, third place gospel presentation.
Which is why I love the way my competition just gave you a rating. But even then, even when you're just rating, like, you preach the gospel terribly.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Like, doing it at all means it's not subpar. So
I
in
would
those
not want to
ways,
be a
we could critique
judge. That's
everything.
definitely the thing.
Yeah, we can critique everything, and nothing's perfect because people are running it, and that's fine. Sure, grow your competition, hack a part of your competition out, whatever. But in the end, to your point, there were young men that were encouraged to do something, to take a step. And here's one who wish he had, and there's others that did, and that they are where they are now, and in part because of that. I was thinking about that same point earlier. Just for how many of our students have we heard all it took was that little nudge, or even and I mean, a little nudge could be, a still small voice in the ear, or it could be hey, Johnny, get over here. You're going to do this. Why? Because it's good for you. Let's go. I like either one. It does it that could be all it takes. Absolutely, man. We got to wrap this up. We've been
It's time.
reminiscing and talking about all the positives, but yeah.
Yeah. Let's get over to our administrator shout out for this episode, which we are sending over to Claire Dant, Bethel Christian Academy.
Oh, I'm excited about talking about Claire Dant tonight because Claire Dant, Lord willing, will be joining us on this podcast to have a discussion we have never touched before. It's interesting to think that there's still so much out there that we have not talked about. We are going to be talking to Claire Dant again, Lord willing, and with her good graces. So
we're not applying any
keep.
pressure here at all.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. It's a promise I cannot keep on my own, but we're working very hard towards it. We've had a good conversation. I got to send out some more information and hopefully get it. But Claire Dant is she's the building leader there at Bethel Christian Academy. Claire Dant has been there for, I'm pretty sure, over 20 years at this point in that position. And I don't want to say too much more about her because I want her to be able to introduce herself when she comes on. But we are very thankful to have made this relationship with her and to have had a conversation with her. And we're thankful for what she does there at Bethel and for how she stands for biblical truth. We'll let it rest there. But I'm going to go ahead and pray for you now, Claire. Let's pray. Father in heaven, you are good to us, far better to us than we deserve. And in this time of walking through the April and the May and the June of our schools, and we're coming to a quick end, and that some of that quickness comes just because there's so much going on. It just flies, Lord. You see it all. You had a plan from the start. You know what we can handle. You know what Claire is able to handle. Please offer her in every way the strength that you promise us to do your work with and through you. As for the rest of us as well, much the same. That we finish strong for you as we even just prepare to finish, think through finishing, or even think through the next year and what's upcoming and the possibilities for our students and ourselves, even as discussed tonight in the realm of fine arts and competition, or just offering such to our students, or seeing our students thrive in the same. Lord, we love you. We thank you for your Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ. We ask all this in his name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, folks, make sure you check us out on Facebook, on the Instagram, on the YouTube. YouTube subscribers have been stuck for a second. So if you haven't subscribed to YouTube, please go ahead and tick that up a little bit. That needs to we're putting too much effort in YouTube to not see more numbers on the YouTube side of the house. But in any case, thanks for growing with us today.
We want to thank you for listening. We're honored that you spend this time with us each week. Our heart is to bring you practical conversations and resources that really serve you as a Christian school leader. One of the best ways you can help us spread the word is by leaving us a review and sharing the podcast with other Christian school principals you're connected with. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Join the conversation and share any posts that resonate with you. Every share makes a difference in helping more leaders find encouragement and practical tools. And remember, the podcast is just one way we help. We also love serving schools through speaking and workshops. Our keynotes and sessions are designed to give you actionable strategies you can take back to your team and implement right away. If you'd like more details, just send us an email at info@christianprinciplespodcast.com. We'd love to connect. Until next time, thanks for joining us on the Christian Principles Podcast.